Welcome to the Visa Hour, coming to you from the U.S. Embassy in Manila. Thank you for joining us today. Now we're coming at you live, but to join in, you can submit your questions by posting them on our various social media sites, on Twitter using the hashtag #TheVisaHour, or by posting questions on our Facebook page, facebook.com/manila.usembassy, or on our Google Plus page, google.com/+USEmbassyManila. My name is Julius.
And I'm Rachel, and Julius and I are both consular officers in the non-immigrant visa unit of U.S. Embassy Manila. Just so you know, all of the information that we're going to be discussing here today on how to apply for a non-immigrant visa is available on our website. So look us up at manila.usembassy.gov/non-immigrant-visas.html. So right now, first of all, the first thing we want to know is what exactly does the term non-immigrant visa mean, Julius?
Okay, Rachel, that's a great question to start us out. So a non-immigrant visa applicant is someone who intends a temporary visit to the United States. This can be for a number of reasons, for a business trip, for example, or to go to Disneyland or to visit your relatives. But basically someone who does not intend to reside permanently in the United States, but is going for a temporary and legitimate purpose and coming back to their country of residence.
Okay. So that answers Hannah's question from Facebook then. We also have some questions from Mildred, Georgette, and David on Facebook who wanted to know if they could get a non-immigrant visa while still waiting for their immigrant visa petition to become current. Is that possible?
That's another question that we hear a lot. You know, in the Philippines, we recognize that many people do have family ties in the United States, and they may have pending immigrant visa applications. We also realize that sometimes, depending on the visa class of the IV or immigrant visa, those pending applications can take years. And in between, people may want to take a trip to the US for a variety of reasons. The main thing to realize is that we look at every applicant using the same guidelines under US immigration law. They basically have to demonstrate that they're going to the US for a temporary and legitimate stay, and that they have sufficiently strong ties outside of the United States in their country of residence to compel their return afterwards. So it is possible, and just remember that everyone has to basically meet the criteria of the non-immigrant visas in general.
So since Julius and I are both from the non-immigrant visa section, we're going to be focusing on those types of visas today. And our section actually produced a really great video about what to expect in the non-immigrant visa application process. So let's take a look at one of those sections of our video.
Walang sikreto when applying for a U.S. visa. The process is very simple. Every year, thousands of Filipino visitors travel to the United States. Nearly 200,000 non-immigrant visa applications are processed annually. 80% of applicants receive a visa. Join us as we explain the non-immigrant visa process.
Mabuhay! Ako ay isang consular officer galing sa Amerika. Applying for a visa to go to the United States is simple. You can do it in 4 easy steps. Step 1, pay your application fee. Step 2, fill out your application. Step 3, schedule your interview. And step 4, go to the interview here at U.S. Embassy Manila.
Okay, so that was some great information that we saw to get us started. So we had a number of questions from Cecile, from Eleanor, from Cherie, Mona, and Shiana about asking how to start this whole process. So, for example, Cherie asks, my mom is currently has been in Virginia since '85. I plan to visit her. What is the first step that I should take in applying for a visa?
So the absolute very first step that you want to take in applying for a non-immigrant visa is going to our website. I mentioned that before, but if you can't remember it, it's very easy to Google U.S. Embassy Manila visa, and that will take you directly to our website. Okay. Once you go to our website, you'll find a wealth of information on the various types of visa classes that we have that can fit your purpose of travel to the United States.
Okay, then that's great information. Now, so when someone has gone on the website, the next steps then would be to pay the visa fee and then to set up the appointment. So this brings us to the question from Rich on Facebook. And he asks, I paid my visa fee on the 18th of July in 2014, but have not yet followed up or even asked about the date of my appearance for the interview. Is there a way that at this date I can still appear in the embassy? And basically, I think his question is, how does he then move from having paid the fee to setting up his appointment?
It sounds like Rich already completed the second step, which all of the steps on applying for a visa, they're all listed on our website. We have a very easy guide that you can follow. So Rich already printed off the guide on how to pay the visa fee, which he maybe printed off the slip and went to a local bank, or he could do that online. And now he wants to know about how to actually go about setting up his visa appointment. You can do that online as well, but first you'll need to fill out the DS-160, which is the application form. We ask you a lot of questions that we need before you actually come into the embassy. Once you fill that out, you'll get a barcode number. With that barcode, you can set up the appointment either online, or you can call our call center and ask them what times we have available that would be convenient for you to come into the embassy.
Okay, and that transitions well into our next two questions, which are about the timing of the interviews. So we had a question from Wayne Lin, who asked, I just want to ask, is it okay to have an appointment for the interview? She gives the certain month, let's say in November, if my intended travel is in May of the next year.
That would be absolutely okay. And we actually encourage applicants to apply well in advance of their travel so we can be sure we have enough time to process your visa. However, the only thing I would caution you is when you come in for your interview, the consular officer is going to ask you questions that are very specific about your travel, such as where you're going and what you're going to be doing there. So if your plans for travel are still kind of abstract and you aren't sure where you want to go in the US or who you're going to see or what you're going to be doing, I suggest waiting to schedule your interview until you've actually gotten more further on your plans of where you want to go in the United States.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. And I think applicants want to strike the right balance. So on the one hand, you want to have very concrete details about where you're going, why you intend to go. On the other hand, sometimes I see applicants who have already purchased their plane tickets. And that's a point that we make, that you should not purchase your plane tickets in advance of the interview or until you know what the outcome of the interview is. But you definitely do want to have a clear idea of what you're going there to do and be able to articulate that. Now, another question that we got on processing times, we had a question from Chris on Twitter. Hello, I wonder if it's possible to apply for a visa and have the same interview time as my parents. Thank you.
That's absolutely possible, and we encourage that as well. If you and your parents are traveling for the same purpose of travel, it's easier for us and easier for you if we interview you all together on the same day. In order to set that up, all you would need to do is book your appointments together or call the call center and tell them you need 3 slots all together.
Okay, and one more question on kind of the timing of how the process works. So we had a question from Jay. How long does it take typically if someone comes to an interview and they are approved for a visa, how long could they expect to wait before receiving that visa?
Our usual processing times, if you're approved a visa after your interview, is about 1 week or 5 working days. That's if you're approved and we don't need any other information from you. You can expect to receive it via courier in about 1 week.
Okay, and that also goes to the point that we'll make repeatedly, and that is we urge our applicants to apply as early as possible so that you can give enough time for the process to run its course and you can get your visa in a timely fashion before you travel.
Krissa Malinog on Facebook asks, my son will graduate from his hotel and hospitality course soon. He wants to do his internship in the US. What kind of visa will he apply for?
Okay. So there's a number of visa categories that relate to education or work and study related arrangements. So let me just talk more generally. So we have the F and J visas in this realm. So the F visas are for those applicants who want a course of study in the United States. This can be anywhere from primary school up to a college or a graduate school. The J visas are for interns and trainees, and we have a lot of these. Applicants. Now, if we're looking just in terms, anytime someone is applying, they should think carefully about which visa category is the most appropriate. And so, just running through the most common ones, we have the B1, B2s for people who are going for business trips or for tourism. Those are the ones that we see probably the most applicants from. The C1Ds, those are transit visas, seafarers, crew, people passing through the United States. The Fs and Js, as we just mentioned, which are relating to education or internships or trainee arrangements. Those are some of the main kinds of categories that we get. And relating to studying in the United States or working there as an intern or a trainee, we actually did an episode of the Visa Hour just on that topic. And so we urge you to look at that episode. It's called Studying in the U.S. and it's on our YouTube channel. Another good resource that I would recommend is the USCIS. That stands for United States Citizenship and Immigration Service. They also have information, particularly on another category. This is a category of work-related visas, the H's and the L's. Those are petition-based visas, and the petitions originate with USCIS, and they originate in the United States. And so it's important to be knowledgeable about that process as well. Lastly, if you're thinking about the various visa classes, I would also recommend the website travel.state.gov. That's the State Department's official website relating to travel and visas. There's a great page called US Visas, and there you can get a great rundown and all kinds of information on every visa class.
To follow up on that question, what if the son were under 18 years of age? Kat Lopez on Twitter wanted to know if an 18-year-old can interview for a visa. Is there a difference on the age there?
That's a good question too. So we see applicants of all ages, and applicants in general need to appear in person for the interview. However, if someone is a minor, if they're under 18, then we advise you to come in with either a guardian or a parent. Okay.
So I think the key to that is 6 months or 60 years of age, everybody needs to come into the embassy.
Yeah, and we see everyone from babies to retirees, and it's a welcoming atmosphere for them all. Okay. Let me move on to another question. This is, again, as people are thinking about applying, we do have a number of our applicants who may have had US visas in the past. And so Luz Viminda, Estoc, and Onard all ask questions about the process of applying if one already has a US visa that may have expired at some point in the past. Is there anything different about that process?
The visa application process for first-time applicants and for people renewing their visas is actually exactly the same. The first step is you need to go to the website, follow the steps on there. You need to pay your visa application fee, fill out your DS-160, the application form. You need to pay your fee and then go about setting up your appointment, either online or through our call center. And then you'll need to come into the embassy for fingerprinting and your interview. The only difference is that if you've had a visa before in the past, you might be able to avail of our Visa Renewal Program or VRP program. And this application allows people who have had previous good use on a B1, B2, a tourist or business trip visa, to waive the interview with a consular officer. So you might not be waiting at the embassy for quite so long. There are a lot of requirements for the VRP program, the Visa Renewal Program. Number one, you have to be a Philippine passport holder. Number two, you have to have a full validity B1, B2 visa. So that means it was good for 10 years for multiple entries. Your visa must either still be valid or it could have expired within the past 12 months. So if your visa expired in 2010, right now you're not eligible to participate in the VRP program. You also have to have all of your passports in your possession since you were issued that visa. So if you got that visa in 2005 and then you had a visa in between when that passport was valid and the current passport, then you need to bring all of those passports in with you. Also, you need to have not been refused a US visa within the past 12 months and also never have stayed in the US for longer than 6 months on your B1, B2 visa. So I know that's a lot of information I'm throwing at you. Those are a lot of requirements. But once again, you can go onto our website to check out the requirements to that for that program to see if you would be able to participate in it.
Yeah, and that is a great program. And so if you do meet those guidelines, check on our website. If you do meet those guidelines, that's a real convenience that we provide to our customers, and it can get your visa in your hands even quicker. Now, I have a question here about a lost visa. Say someone has had a visa in the past. Marianne asked, I was granted a B1, B2 multiple entry visa last July 2014, but my passport got lost, and that was the passport that my US visa was in. What should I do to get another visa?
First of all, I'm very sorry that your visa is lost. and your passport is lost, but we understand that that happens. So in order to go about applying for a new visa, it's the exact same process if you would like a new visa. But we do ask that as soon as you find out that your visa is lost or stolen, please report it to the embassy immediately. It's very important for the United States in securing our border that we cancel visas that are lost or stolen so somebody else does not try to travel on your visa, because you might also be held responsible for that, and you might receive a permanent ineligibility if somebody does try to travel on your visa. So it's very important that you report it to us. In order for us to cancel that visa, we will need you to submit an affidavit of loss and a police report. And also, if you have a copy of your old visa, it's very good to always have copies of your visas. Please send that in so we can see your visa information, such as your name, date of birth, visa number, passport number, all of that information.
Yeah, no, that's important information because those are very critical documents. The other thing I would want to add there is I think there are a lot of people who have had a lot of travel in the past and may have had U.S. visas and U.S. travel. I think it's a prudent practice in general for everyone to keep copies of their passports, also copies of their U.S. visas, and also any entry and exit stamps, so that in the future, if someone needs to establish a pattern of travel and how long they've stayed in the U.S., that information is great to have. But definitely those are very critical documents and pieces of information.
Next, we have a question from Arlindo and Rosendo on Facebook, who they both received immigrant visas in the past, but they're no longer living in the U.S. They came back to the Philippines. These two are interested in visiting the United States again. So can they get a non-immigrant visa even though they've been issued an immigrant visa in the past?
Yeah, that's another excellent question. So we do have a number of folks who in the past may have immigrated to the United States, but for some reason, something in their family life or circumstances changed. They decide to basically abandon their permanent residence in the U.S. and move back, in this case, to the Philippines. Now, there is a formal process by which you can turn in a green card if you are no longer residing in the United States. And this is done through a form called the Form I-407. This is a form that's put out by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service. Filling out this form and going through this procedure does involve a visit to the USCIS office. We're very fortunate in that there is a USCIS field office at the U.S. Embassy in Manila. And in fact, you can even go through this procedure on the same day that you do your non-immigrant visa interview. So it's actually quite convenient, but it is important to formally to surrender that green card. The other thing I wanted to talk about, Rachel, while we're talking about on this general topic, is that there are also cases in which an applicant might have a claim to U.S. citizenship. Let's say, well, one of the parents might have been a U.S. citizen, but those need to be adjudicated by American Citizen Services. That's also a part of the consular section here at the embassy. And so before we are able to proceed with the processing of a non-immigrant visa case, any outstanding issues relating to possible citizenship would need to be looked at by American Citizen Services. And again, they're also at the embassy and can be found. The information can be found on our website.
Let's take another look at a segment of our video that talks about the steps in applying for a non-immigrant visa and what to prepare before you come to the embassy.
You may pay your visa fee at any BPI branch by printing out a copy of the visa deposit slip. Once paid, complete the DS-160 online. Book your interview either online or by calling our call center. Schedule your appointment well in advance of your travel date. On the day of your interview, leave behind all electronic items, as well as any food. This can be purchased inside the embassy. Liquids are also not allowed. Weapons of any kind are strictly prohibited inside. However, you must bring your printed appointment confirmation, your DS-160 confirmation, a 2x2 photo, as well as any new or old passports in your possession.
Okay, so that was some great information that actually takes you further into the steps of applying and gives you some really vivid and kind of real life situations. So now that the application is done, you've made your appointment and you're ready to come to the embassy. In this process, what are some of the common errors that we see when folks are filling out their applications.
A lot of the errors that we see actually could be prevented if you double check your application and all of the documents that you need to bring to the embassy. Especially double check your gender, your name, including your middle name, your birth date, your passport number, and make sure that you've included your maiden name on your application. If some of this information isn't there on your application, we might not be able to interview you when you come into the embassy. We might have to turn you away, and you'll have to go back and fill out another DS-160 application form and then return to the embassy, which wastes your time and it wastes our time. So we really encourage you to double check your application. We also want to make sure that you comply with our photo requirements. You need to not be smiling, showing your ears, and the photo can't be blurry as well. Also, the passports. Sometimes some of the passports that we receive, they aren't in very good condition. For example, the binding is falling out or they've been wet. Unfortunately, even if you're approved a visa, we can't put visas in passports that are falling apart. So we're going to have to send you home to apply for a new passport and then send that in to us. So that will delay your processing time and your visa and travel time once again.
Okay, that's all great information. It's important to check and double check your application. Also in the Philippines, it is the case that people may have multiple names or have different names that are reflected on the civil documents as they get married, for example. So it's important that all the information is there and consistent and is reflected clearly in the online application form.
We have a question from Neth who said, I have a friend who is an African national studying here in the Philippines, but he wants to finish his MBA in the United States. Can he apply or process his student visa here in the Philippines? Yeah,
that's a great question. We also had similar questions from Rosalind and Anesaton. So this is about third country nationals, so people who are applying for a U.S. visa, but not applying in the country of their citizenship. And we do see cases like that here in Manila. So basically, any person who is legally present in the Philippines can apply for a visa here. However, if this situation does apply to you, then it would be important to make that decision of where to apply, not just based on simple convenience or the fact that there might be a delay in the visa process in your home country. As with any other applicant, every applicant for a non-immigrant visa, as we've mentioned previous to this, has to demonstrate that they have strong ties outside the U.S. To the country of residence. And so think about your situation carefully. Where is your primary residence, and where can you apply where you can best demonstrate those ties outside of the United States? And I think that if you think through that process and you look at the guidelines that we give on our website and under U.S. immigration law, that might help you to come to a decision as to whether to go back to your home country and apply, or indeed to apply here. There can be successful candidates in either case.
Let's watch another segment of our video that tells you what to expect when you actually come into the embassy for your interview day.
More than 1,000 applicants every day. It is important that you arrive at the embassy 15 minutes before your scheduled appointment. Our greeters are here to assist and make sure your interview goes smoothly. Once inside, you will follow 3 steps. First, you will meet with our pre-screening staff. Then, we will collect your fingerprints. Finally, you will interview with an American consular officer. During pre-screening, you will have the opportunity to correct any mistakes on your DS-160 application. Our staff will also verify that you are applying for the correct visa class. In addition, they will also make sure your photo meets our technical requirements. You will then be directed to the next step, which is finger scanning. When you approach the window, you will be asked for your name and date of birth. Once you give this information, our staff will guide you through the fingerprinting process.
The third part of the process is an interview with an American consular officer. This is a really important part of the process, so we ask that you be open and honest with us. We might ask you things like why you want to visit the United States, maybe about your career, maybe your income and your family contacts. It's important that we get all this information in order to determine whether you're qualified for a non-immigrant visa to the United States. Don't fear. If there's anything that you're lacking at the interview that we need, we can always tell you how to provide that to us at a later date.
In addition, if you have trouble with the language that we're using, we can always provide another officer that can assist. If we're able to issue your visa, you'll have it in about 5 working days. So please try to relax, be calm, and be open and honest.
Okay, so that was a great segment that really shows you in a very realistic way what happens when you come into the embassy. So one of the most common questions that as a consular that I get, and I'm sure you've gotten to, is about documents. So we have questions, for example, from Magenta and Ragug on Facebook. They both ask about documents that a person might need to bring. For example, how to prove your financial situation, or passports to show previous travel. What can be said about documents? What documents should people bring? Should they bring documents? How are they? What part do they play in the whole interview process?
My best advice is to certainly bring your documents that you think can help establish your ties outside of the United States. Bring them into the embassy, but please be aware that oftentimes consular officers have the information that they need in order to make a decision, both from the application form, the DS-160, and from their interview questions, the answers that you give to them. So they might not actually need to see any of the documents. However, I do recommend that you bring them because it's better to be safe than sorry. So bring them in case the consular officer asks about them. There are various documents that we might sometimes ask to see from the applicant. Those are financial documents such as your bank book, or documents that show familial relationships such as the birth certificate or marriage certificate. Also land titles or property titles, your previous passports, especially if they have a US visa in there, because we'll want to see that, or if they show a history of other travel. And also documents that show the immigration status or naturalization process of family members in the United States. For example, if your mother went to the US, married a US citizen, then became a legal permanent resident, and then a US citizen, we would like to see those documents that show that as well. We do have a previous episode of the Visa Hour that is completely on documents and what to do and what not to do. So feel free to look that up on our YouTube channel. My number one tip, though, for people who bring documents, when you bring them in and you come up to the window to interview with the consular officer, the most important part of that interview is the human interaction between you and the consular officer. So please, please, please don't be shuffling through your papers. If the consular officer asks you a question, answer that question. They don't need to see the documents unless they ask for it.
Yeah, and I'd like to just underscore that point too. So every day when we're interviewing in the window, we have to realize that it may be only a few minutes that we have with each applicant. There's pretty thick glass between us and the applicants, and it's done through mics. So it is really important, not only for us as officers, but for the applicants to really focus, establish good eye contact, to listen carefully to what we're saying, and answer the questions that are asked. And in terms of documents, I would also just add the point that, if you organize your documents, so that you're able to reach for them and find anything that you need at a moment's notice, that will also help to really make your interview as fruitful as possible. But yeah, as you said, it is a human-to-human interaction, and we want to really make sure that we have that time to speak with each applicant and understand their situation. So, following up from that question about documents, there's another question from BB, and the question is about how much money an applicant might need to have. Whether I assume this is in savings or in terms of salary, but how much money should an applicant have or be making to qualify for a visa? Is there a number that we can give?
Unfortunately, there's no magic number, because if there was, it would make my job a lot easier. But there is no magic number. Instead, we as consular officers are trained to look at the complete picture, an applicant's ties, and all of the applicant's ties, not just one aspect, which is the financial ties. If an applicant doesn't have a job yet, but maybe has very strong other ties, they might still be able to get a visa. Or if an applicant has a lot of money in the bank, but not very strong ties, they might be denied a visa. It really depends on the complete picture that we as a consular officer see.
Yeah, I think that's correct. And every situation is unique. Every person's kind of situation has many dimensions. And so you just want to be as honest, straightforward, and informative about the complete picture so that the officer can really make that determination.
A couple more questions. One from Rowena on Facebook, who asks, how can a nursing graduate or a registered nurse increase his or her chances of getting approved for a tourist visa? Also, to follow on to that, Orchid, Chris, and Romy on Facebook also ask questions about applying again after being refused in the past. What can they do?
Okay, I think those are all great questions, and these questions really get to the heart of what it takes to kind of qualify for the non-immigrant visa. So under U.S. immigration law, there is a really important section for all of us that's called Section 214B. And in a nutshell, what it says is that every applicant for a non-immigrant visa has to demonstrate that they are not an intending immigrant. Meaning every applicant that comes to the window has to demonstrate that they do not plan to go to the United States and reside there permanently. And they do that by demonstrating strong ties to their country of residence. And as we mentioned before, those ties can be very multifaceted. They can be economic ties. Someone has an established business or has been on the job for a long time. They can be financial ties, significant assets, salary, properties. They can be familial ties. All your family, your extended family, the children that you're taking care of are here. They can also include significant travel or experience in other countries. So it's not just one thing, I think, as you said in the last question, but there is a variety of ways to demonstrate strong ties outside the U.S. And that as an applicant, you are not an intending immigrant. So I think that's really the heart of what the process is about in terms of what we're trying to determine. So it doesn't matter whether a person has a degree in nursing or IT or went to a liberal arts kind of background. Everyone is treated and looked at the same under the guidelines under U.S. immigration law. We want to give everyone a fair chance to demonstrate that. Now, as for the other question about folks that have been refused before. Now, again, every time you come up, the same standard applies. Overcoming the presumption of immigrant intent, or in other words, demonstrating strong ties outside of the U.S. that would compel your return. There are a number of cases. There are folks, for example, someone who is young, who is single, who is a student, or is unemployed. Those folks sometimes have a harder time demonstrating their ties outside the U.S. But I've often seen folks come back, even within a few years, and the person, let's say, has graduated, has a great job they've been working at a few years, is married and has a family, has done a lot of great international travel. So every time an applicant comes to the window, of course, we can see all the notes from the previous interviews. We can also see if there's a trajectory that establishes strengthened or deepened ties. People come back for second and third interviews sometimes who are able to show evidence that they were not able to show at the last interview, or that their circumstances have changed and their ties to the Philippines have deepened. So all those are cases in which we can see someone moving on this path towards really overcoming clearly that presumption of immigrant intent. Again, every case is unique, and we promise that for every time that you come up, we will take a close and fair look at your case. And I think that's the bottom line.
I would suggest, though, waiting to apply again until your situation has actually substantially changed, because oftentimes if you'll apply again the next week, then that isn't really enough time for something to change. If you feel like you can present new information, then you're free to apply again as soon as you want, but usually it takes more time to establish those ties.
Yeah, that's a great point. And again, staying honest, straightforward, and consistent is the best way for the consular officer to see how your situation may have evolved and kind of developed over time, right? And so that's always important. Now, since we're talking about kind of applying and some issues regarding timing, we have a question here from Daniel. And it relates to another kind of refusal called a 221G. And this is, what is 221G, and what does that mean when someone gets that green letter and that might be asking for various things or telling them various things?
A 221G refusal can mean a lot of different things. Oftentimes it means that the consular officer needs more information from the applicant in order to process the visa. So the officer will give the applicant back the 221G letter. It's a green sheet, and check off or write on there what they want to see. They might want to see, for example, a guarantee letter or an invitation letter, or they might want to see your previous passports that show your stamps of how long you stayed in the US last time you went there. Or they might want to see your extension papers that you were allowed to stay there legally for a long period of time last time. So the consular officer will tell you what they need, and in that situation, you need to take action. You need to send into the embassy, provide the consular officer with what they request in order to finish processing your visa application. Sometimes a 221G refusal means that we at the embassy need to complete some administrative processing. Unfortunately, in that situation, there's nothing you can do. We just need to take some additional time to review your application. So for that, you'll just need to sit tight and wait to hear from us. And we can't give an estimate of how long that might take. Sometimes it's a few weeks, sometimes it's a few months, but rest assured that we are actively working on your case. We're trying to figure it out. And you'll hear from us as soon as we have an update on your situation. If your travel date is approaching quickly and you're still waiting for administrative processing here at the embassy, feel free to reach out to us through our email address and let us know that you're still trying to pursue your application and your travel date is approaching, and we'll give you an update of what's going on with that.
Yeah, and I think that even that point also goes to the point of applying as early as possible, as early as you have concrete plans, because if you are asked for further information, you need to have that buffer time before you travel. And the other question that you answers the question that Jasmine had about how long administrative processing takes. And again, just allow enough time and be forthcoming and straightforward in the information that you provide, and we'll do our best to get everything through in a timely fashion.
So we have a few more live questions that have just recently come in. J. David from Twitter asks, what advice can you give to someone who is denied to weak social ties, especially for single people? Thanks.
Okay, so that's a good question. I think, previously when I was talking about people who have been refused and are coming back, everything in a person's life is constantly developing and growing and changing. And so what I would say to someone like that is, we look at every applicant from a number of different facets. Ties are not just social ties. They're not just about whether you're married or not, but they include all kinds of things: your professional stature and standing and seniority, your previous international travel, for example, where your family lives. Do you have family in the States, or do you have family in other parts of the world? There are a number of factors, economic, social, familial, that determine whether someone kind of crosses the threshold into convincingly demonstrating that they don't have immigrant intent. So that's a great question, and we do recognize that we get a lot of young people. There are a lot of folks who are in that demographic in the Philippines, and I would just say keep on kind of excelling at what you do. Keep on improving yourself in terms of education, professionally, and I think that when the time comes, your ties will be able to be deeper and more strengthened. But that is an issue that single people, that young people often face.
Mm-hmm.
So we have another question. This is from Cindy Reyes on Google+, who asks, what is the U.S. Embassy in Manila's schedule for walk-in inquiries or via telephone, and what number to call with regard to visa renewal? Is there a link that you could send me where to find a waiver form to attach to a non-immigrant visa renewal? She mentions a form 212D3. There's a number of questions in there, but any part of that
Sure.
that we can help her on?
Yeah. First of all, let's start with the hours for walk-in inquiries. Unfortunately, we have a very tight schedule here at the embassy. We interview a lot of people. If you drive by the embassy at 7 or 7:30 in the morning, you'll see all the people that we're interviewing. So we actually don't allow for any walk-in inquiries because we are very busy processing those visas and doing those applications. So with that, I would recommend emailing our email address, which is on the website, and giving us the details of your case and what the questions are. And with that, we can take a little bit more time to research your case for you and give you a substantial answer if you have a question. Going back to that question, she also asked about link for a waiver form. There's no actual 212(d)(3) waiver form. If you're interested in applying for a waiver, you can tell the consular, if you know that you will need a waiver, you can tell the consular officer that at the time of your interview. If you have documents that you think might make you a good candidate for a waiver, feel free to bring those and present your case to the consular officer. The consular officer is the one who will actually be filling out the waiver form for you, so there's no actual form for you to fill out.
Okay, and just to reiterate, the email address is consmanilaniv, that's CONSMANILANIV @state.gov. But I would even back up further from that and say, if you do have a question, I would start first at our website. Our blog, our various social media sites, programs such as this. There's so much information out there. We have FAQ, frequently asked questions, and I'll bet for most of folks who have a question about any part of the visa process, they can find someone who's asked a similar question, and they can find a good answer to their question online. So I would definitely check our website first, do some research. But if you have a very specific question, then the email is a good way to reach us.
Okay, we have time for our last 4 questions. Gina Lubong on Facebook asks, what are the common reasons why some of the applicants are being denied with their non-immigrant visa applications? Okay,
so I think this goes back to kind of the key qualification for the non-immigrant visa, and that is that an applicant has to demonstrate that they are not an intending immigrant, that they intend to go for a temporary and legitimate purpose, whether it's to visit your auntie or it's to go to a business meeting, to get some training or to do an internship, but that after that they will return. And what we looked at in terms of whether someone will return or not is the strength of their tie, the strength and the depth of their ties to their country of residence. And again, that can cover the gamut: economic, social, familial. So a lot of times people fail to demonstrate those strong ties. Sometimes folks are just not prepared for the interview. They actually are good applicants, but they are not able to either articulate or otherwise demonstrate what those ties are. So really, I think as long as you watch programs like this, as long as you kind of read up on the website and do your research, and you're prepared by the time that you come in, then you're giving yourself as good a shot as you can at being qualified for that visa. Okay, so the next question that we have is from Jane Obligacion Hobbs on Facebook. I'm married to a retired U.S. military, but my husband chooses to live here. I'm still working in one of the top banks here in the Philippines. Can I apply for a tourist visa first? I just wanted to visit the U.S. with my husband and accompany him to his medical checkup in VA. I will be applying for my spousal visa, and I assume by this is a spousal immigrant visa, in the near future. What about a situation like that?
First of all, I can understand why your husband chose to live here. It's much warmer here than in the United States, especially right now as the U.S. goes into winter. Then for you, as far as if you can apply for a tourist visa, you are more than welcome to apply for a tourist visa. And if your intent is just to visit the United States for a checkup, like you said, with your husband, it sounds like that's exactly what a B1, B2 tourist visa is meant for a short visit to the United States. The qualifications for that are exactly the same. You need to go through the application process, follow the steps on our website. You also will need to overcome, as Julius has talked extensively about, Section 214B of our immigration law, which states that you need to demonstrate substantial ties outside of the United States. So with your job, with your familial ties, all of that, you'll need to bring that to the interview with the consular officer to be able to convince them, because the onus is on the applicant. If you're interested in applying for your spousal visa, which we call, it's the CR1 classification for a spousal visa, in the future, that is something that will need to be processed through U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. You'll need to file a petition with that.
Yeah, and the spousal visa, the CR1 is the conditional visa, or the IR1, and it depends on the length of time you've been married. But you can find all that information on the website, and we wish you luck on your situation.
Kenny on Twitter asks, hi, I'm traveling to the U.S. this month as a visitor for a 3-week stay. Is it okay if my passport is expiring in 4 months?
Okay, so thanks for that question, Kenny. So what we recommend is that the passport have at least 6 months validity left in it. So, so in your case, I would recommend that you get a new passport before applying.
Mhm. Yeah.
So the next question is from Jay Treadstone on Facebook. I'm having training in the U.S. How soon can you issue a B1 visa? Thank you.
Like I mentioned before, Jay, it usually takes about 1 week after you come to the embassy for your interview for us to process your visa. Those wait times can vary depending on if you have all of the information that we need. So please come prepared, and also fill out your application form, and you'll pay your visa fee as quickly as possible too. Kalapong on Twitter asks, the visa hour, I am under F2B. Can I still apply for a tourist visa? Will this have any effect on my immigrant application?
Okay, so this goes back to the question, the question of someone who has a pending immigrant visa application, but in the period that they're waiting for it, which may be years, they wish to make a temporary travel. So again, it goes back to being able to clearly demonstrate that you are going for a legitimate and temporary purpose, and that there are sufficiently strong ties in your country of residence to bring you back. So every situation will differ, but again, I think as long as you kind of stay focused on what the heart of qualifying for a non-immigrant visa, that is demonstrating you're not an immigrant, intending immigrant, I think that then you'll give yourself the best chances possible. So unfortunately, we don't have enough time to answer all of your questions. They've been excellent questions, and I think every time one person asks a question, they're really asking on behalf of perhaps dozens and dozens of people. So we thank everyone who's asked a question, and we hope that our answers have helped everyone who's watching today.
So in addition to thanking everyone, we want to give a shout out to the people who posted questions on our social media. So on Twitter, we got questions from Kat Lopez, Daniel Warner, Mildred Tokero, Chris Alvarez, Ajay David, Kenny, and Kalapong14.
And on Facebook, we want to thank Estoc Celia, Krissa Sait Malanog, Ruby Mendoza, and by the way, apologies if I'm pronouncing anyone's name incorrectly, Emily, Onard Salva, Erlinda Campos, Mona Palad, Cherie Weiss, Genevieve Schmidt, Rowena Gao, David Van Net, Rich Pangananong, Georgette Gonzalez, Adong David, Rosalind Kina, Rosendo Redoble, Jazzy Fernandez, Tiny Joe, Jasmine Malana Del Cruz, Maxari Lampa, Anesiton Odlatlusnok, Romy Ariola, Emily Orts, Chris Velasquez, Rosalina Alfante, Orchid Alarkson, Jay Treadstone. A lot of folks out there, which we're very happy for. Thank you. Magenta Habibi, Ragugda Dios, Shalani Odi Taves, Luz Viminda, Galiza, Sheana Sali, Ween Lin, BB, Cudberry Sanchez, Hannah Game Farm, Marianne Asias, Jasmine Silvestre, Mike Sakabin, Josefina Santos, Mark Baker, Diana Agraviador, Gina Lubang, Jane Obligacion Hobbs, Jay Treadstone. Phew.
And finally, on Google+, we also got questions from Eleanor Jerial and Cindy Reyes. So thank you very much for all of your questions.
Thank you.
We appreciate them. I hope we were able to answer them. Finally, if we weren't able to answer them, please contact us if you have specific questions about your case via email. Our email address is cons, C-O-N-S, Manila, N-I-V, @state.gov, or you can visit our website at manila.usembassy.gov/non-immigrant-visas.html.
And then for those of you who asked immigrant visa related questions, we realize this interest, and we will be planning a visa hour coming to you from the immigrant visa section soon.
For additional questions, you can also continue to post them on the visa wall of our Facebook page at http:// on.fb.me/visa wall.
And of course, don't forget to visit our visa blog, vSatisfied Voyager, at blogs.usembassy.gov/Philippines.
You can watch this on-demand version of this episode of the Visa Hour on the YouTube channel if you want to get some more of Julius and me at youtube.com/US Embassy Manila.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/manila.US Embassy.
You can follow us on Twitter as well, twitter.com/US Embassy. Oh, U.S. Embassy Manila. Sorry, twitter.com,
That's right.
U.S. Embassy Manila.
Add us to your circles on Google Plus at google.com/plus US Embassy Manila.
And then finally, check us out on Instagram for our pictures. Search for U.S. Embassy Manila.
Again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next month for the next episode of the Visa Hour.
Bye.
Bye.